It's hilarious that they offer like these big green oligarchs, and these predators. They offer solutions that involves more consumption, like more overexploitation of these natural resources, which is counterproductive to what's happening, right? And yeah, their grift really needs to be exposed.
Hmm.
And another thing that you talk about on your channel is you give us like the harsh reality. I mean, it's something that we need to accept, right? You discuss the science of how we're beyond the pale at this point. The analogy that you used when it comes to climate change is like a 65-year-old realizing that he's an alcoholic after 50 years of drinking. Right. So you want to talk about that a little bit about how it's like we're deciding to do something about climate change a bit too late, right? And at this point, all we can do is just adapt with the times, right?
Yeah, I mean I think that's one of the things that they're not letting people know is that uh, we're we've already locked in, the guardrails that we're supposed to be avoiding, right? So if we do net zero by 2030 or 2035 or 2050, I think it's, whatever the dates are, whatever the, excuse me, time is, if we just do these things, we cut emissions by 50%, we're going to avoid these catastrophic impacts. And they know that's a lie. They know that is categorically false because we have already, we've been pumping out emissions for decades and decades and decades and decades, and we haven't even seen the heating from those emissions yet. And that's, that I'm not making that up. I'm telling you what scientists
Mm-hmm.
have been saying for a long time. Um, the James Hansons and Guy McPherson's and Peter Wadhams and Natalia Shakova and all, there's so many climate scientists out there that have been saying like, hey, for decades they've been saying this, 20 or 30 years, like, we're gonna have real problems in the future, and now we're at the point of having real problems, and we haven't really we haven't done anything about it, very, very little. And so, yeah, we're at a point where we are deciding to get sober after abusing our livers for 40 years, and the liver is shot. That's we may, and I don't know what to do about that. Personally, on a personal level, I have no idea. I have some ideas about what a real emergency action would look like, but it would take a lot of organization of human beings on the planet. I have some ideas about what that roadmap should be or could look like, but I don't. Those things are way outside of people's understanding of how the world works.
It's gonna have to
Right?
change. Like the way that people see reality is gonna have to change. Like they're gonna have to change the way that they that they like
Yeah.
interact with their society. It's not about like they have this idea, and that's because of these politicians, these journalists that make people think like, oh yeah, if we just use this other type of energy, things will be fine. But no,
Right.
we have to reduce the amount of energy that we use overall. In addition to
Yep.
using uh, cleaner sources of energy, like we have to reduce, right?
Right.
We're gonna actually have to use less cars. Like it's not about buying more electric cars. It's about just reducing the amount
Yeah.
of cars that you buy and use. Like we have to use more bikes. We have to promote more public transportation.
Yeah.
Like what else? What else would you say we have to do?
Um. Well, all of those things are great things to do. Like there are a lot of things that people can do on a personal level, um, that can that can help. Right. You can reduce your own consumption. You can reduce the amount of random things that you buy. You can try and reduce the amount of plastics that you bring into the world. It's very hard, because everything is made of plastic or wrapped in plastic or,
Hmm.
but I don't know. it seems futile on a personal level, but I think that it's one of those things like every little bit helps, right? Like if a million people are consuming, a couple gallons less gas a week, right? That's a lot of gas, right? And over time, and with enough people being aware of the problem, I think that there can be some kind of impact. And I mean, I know plenty of people who have given up their cars and only take public transportation or only bike, or just drive their cars very minimally, right? Like maybe they only drive their car once a week, or whatever it is that you can do. There are a multitude of things that you can do to try to bring down your own personal carbon footprint, or you can grow food, you can start to kind of try and get yourself off the grid. You can I would encourage everybody to do that. I would encourage everybody to try and see if they can create communities that can kind of take themselves out of the system, or friends that you can kind of create like a community of people that understand that the consumption that we enjoy is not helpful for the planet, so that you can kind of share ideas about it, or share ways to take yourself out of the grid a little more, little by little. But on a political level, I don't know what it is we're going to do, because everything about the political system is meant to keep the political system going, and everything about the political system is meant to keep the system going as it is, right? And no, it would take a few very strong, brave people, and then it would take more than a few very strong, brave people to back them up to absolutely change the political system that we have, right? And that's not even just about climate change. That's about kind of everything that's affecting our lives, right? We're being taken over by this corporate, I don't know what you want to call it, corporate technocracy, or corporate authoritarianism. I'm not really sure what you might want to call it,
which keeps exacerbating with each administration that we have. Like, it doesn't matter, like the Democrat or Republican is just going to keep our country's just going to continue to be more authoritarian. So in addition to like what you were saying about what people need to do with opting out, like this has to be integrated with what other people are doing and trying to build more communities as they opt out, implement some of the things that the Black Panthers had done when they were organizing with their communities when they opted out. When I was on your show, I think it was like a month or two ago, we talked about Freedom Cells, which is what Derek Bros is doing. So yeah, all of that has to be integrated together. Because I don't see a solution in electoral politics. The way I see it is it keeps getting worse no matter who we elect into Congress or as the president. Like I'm preaching to the choir here with my audience, but if you vote for these progressives, they're just going to be just the same as their colleagues that take corporate money.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make a difference. We have people that are supposed to be progressive or supposed to be outside, fighting the system, or getting in there and making change, and what happens is they get changed, right? And so I don't see it happening from within necessarily. And so maybe the best way to go about it is to create alternative alternative lifestyles or alternative communities outside of the system, and just try and drain the system of its energy and of its influence over people's minds, because that's the biggest one of the biggest threats, I think, or one of the biggest impediments to getting something done, is that people are really bought into the system on multiple levels, right? we think this is the way that we have organized our civilization is the only way that it can be organized, right? And so um, it's like if everybody woke up and just decided to just not participate, right? Whatever it's a random idea, but the COVID lockdowns were something that was kind of imposed from the top, right? Something that the media and the politicians and everybody said like, hey, we got to do this thing to take care of coronavirus or whatever. And there are lots of ideas, lots of discussion around whether that is bad, good, evil, whatever. But what if if enough people kind of decided to just stay home or just not, there have been movements like that too, right? There have been political protests like stay home, against the war, or stay home against rights, opt out of the system, right? It's like going on strike. Like, I'm not going to participate. So if you get enough people together to agree that we're just not going to participate in this anymore, then you drain the system of its energy. You drain that paradigm, that thought, that mental space where, oh, we have to do these things. You don't have to. There are lots of ways that people are living their lives outside of the system, and it's becoming a thing, right? Like, people understand this. A lot of people understand this already. A lot of people are like moving out of the city, trying to find some land, trying to live off grid, trying to kind of just create their own lifestyles outside of this consumer garbage lifestyle that we live in.
Yeah, that a lot of people think that that's just how they have to live because that's what they've known their whole life, and then the way that it exacerbates, the way that things become more privatized, the way that our food becomes more adulterated, our agriculture becomes more adulterated. It happens so slowly that people don't notice it. So yeah, definitely. So here's something that you talk about on your show. Like, you show people about the extreme temperatures around the world. Here's a Twitter account that you show to people. This is something that we have to come to grips with. Temperature is increasing a lot. So I'm just going to go through some of these tweets, and then I can have you comment on some of this. So here they tweeted out European heat wave while Finland missed its June national record by 0.2 degrees Celsius, 33.6 degrees Celsius today. Belarus didn't. Temperature reached 35.7 degrees Celsius at Zlobin. 0.1 degrees Celsius above previous national record set at Berezina on June 23rd, 1964. This record will probably be beaten again in the next few days. Cold spell in Western Australia with unusual low maximum temperatures on June 21st, followed by a cold morning on June 22nd. Some remarkable low T-maxes included 10.0 degrees Celsius at Meriden. It ties its June record, POR 55 years ago, and 17.7 degrees Celsius at Roebourne, as an unusual scorching town. So it just goes through everything that's going on around the world. Like, records are being broken all around the world. And we're also seeing an increase in variation. So in addition to like what you were saying about how, it would be lovely to see people just like wake up one day and understand like what we have to do. All we can do at this point is just keep informing people and hope that we finally do get to that point where people realize, all right, things are just really bad right now, and the way things are, it just has to end. So you have any comments about some of those tweets that Extreme Temperature, that Twitter account, puts up?
Yeah, I mean, I read those off pretty regularly, but I think it's becoming kind of it's becoming harder to deny that something is going on, and I think that there will be eventually a tipping point um, not just in climate change, but a tipping point in people's minds about where we're at and what's actually going on. And there was some, there's been a lot of polls over the last few years around how people think about climate change, and in the last 2 or 3 years, the number of people that believe it's a serious problem has gone up sharply. And I think that's just because people are experiencing, constant, kind of like a constant onslaught of extreme weather. And, the weather seems so benign, such a benign thing to talk about. But, when it impacts your life and starts to become, something that people are having difficulty living through, then it's, a little more than weather. But, over the last few years, places like Louisiana and Texas and all, all the states along the Mississippi River have all had like major flood events, over the last 2 or 3 years, like every single year. And that's not normal. They call them like 1,000-year floods or 500-year floods, right? These major flood events. Oh, this amount of rain only happens every 500 years. But if it happens every single year, then it's no longer a 500-year
Right.
flood event. This is now what people are going to be experiencing all the time. And so people are living through these situations, and it's becoming obvious that,
These,
something is different.
yeah, all these rare like weather events are becoming the norm now. Like
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
year there's something record breaking, and then I used to hear people be like, oh, like, but this is just natural. Like the Earth goes through cycles. Well, I'm hearing less of that now. I don't know about you.
I am hearing it less. And even though it's still one of those arguments that, the weather's always changing. Well, yeah, it is. But, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to be right. I'm not trying to be like, I'm right and you're wrong. And, you must see things how this is seriously just, myself and other people who are covering climate change are really just trying to sound the alarm and just trying to, let people know, hey, this is what's going on, because your dear leaders are not doing the job for you, right? Like, again, to go back to the coronavirus example, when coronavirus broke out or escaped or whatever happened with coronavirus, I don't know. But when coronavirus happened, the entire planet was like, hey, here's this problem. Like it was, all the media was talking about it, and all the politicians were talking about it, and they were addressing it as if it were a problem. And, whether that was all concocted or not, there's obviously weird things going on with that. But the thing is if you treated, they're not treating something way more scary and existential than coronavirus, right? Like, however you feel about coronavirus, whether you feel like it's a danger to the human population or whatever, but climate change is way more of a danger to the planet and to the human population and to the population of all the other animals that we share the planet with. And nothing like the same kind of alarm bells going off about that, right? So it's kind of the political establishment has been dragged kicking and screaming into recognizing like, oh, okay, it's 2021, maybe we should do something about it.
Like all the
And
journalists are saying that talk about this. Oh, not all of them, but a lot of them are like, oh, we need to do something about this. Like they go off on talking about all the horrible stuff happening. Like maybe we should do something about this.
oh yeah, I mean, that's every article about climate change I've read for the last 5 years. Like, well, now is the time. Now would be a really good time to do something, really, really forceful about climate change. And that's it. There's, and now, we are seeing some kind of acknowledgement from the leaders of the planet, but a lot of people are saying like it's not nearly enough, it's not fast enough, it's not extreme enough. Again, because they really don't want to upset the apple cart too much, because um, you want to keep the system is benefiting a lot of people, right, and benefiting the people that are wealthy and powerful, and of course they don't want to lose that power, and they don't want anything undermining that power, so they really you know they'd really rather not talk about this, and they're going to wait until everything falls apart, and then they're going to be like, oh,
Who
oh
could
my
have known
God,
it was gonna get
what's
this
happening?
bad?
Right, right.
But yeah, I want to get back to like what we were saying like earlier about how we have to adapt. Like we're beyond the pale at this point.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is with no Green New Deal, none of these policies are gonna save us. It's just we've caused so much
What?
destruction. It's just something that we have to live with now, and that the
Yeah.
future generations have to live with now, because of what their ancestors did. So here's an
Yeah.
article that you showed on your show. I believe it was this weekend or it was just a couple days ago. But you discussed this article talking about the changing risk of coastal communities. Um, so I want to read this part here. The messy work of real adaptation, the necessary ideas for a new adaptation blueprint moving forward encompass several themes. And then they go into detail about how we must be proactive. We may never be done because that's just how much
Yep.
damage we've caused. So this is going to be a never ending process of us adapting to climate change. We
Yep.
must adapt equitably. We cannot adapt structure by structure or department by department. We have the tools we need, but we must at times reimagine them. The future is ours. So yeah, you want to talk a little bit more about what you read here from this article, and I will share this for the audience here so you guys can read this for yourselves.
Yeah. Well, I thought that article summed it up correctly, in that adaptation is going to be, we're not going to avoid those guardrails. We're not going to avoid the 1.5, and we're not going to avoid 2C either. Um, and so, I think that people are really going to have to dig in and figure out what they're going to do in the face of this. And it is, what they said about department by department or structure by structure, like that, it's not going to be, I don't think the governments, as they are, whether they're city, state, whatever, they're not really, probably local governments might be more prepared to deal with something quickly, but the way we're set up, we're not gonna really react in time, and especially if people are not being realistic about what is going on. But there's already like a relocation program in Florida for people
Mm.
that, right there, because they already have king tides happening in Miami and other places, and they already see what's happening, and they understand, like there's going to be places underwater, if not all year round, they're going to be underwater quite often through the year. So they already have earmarked money for people to relocate, and but you don't really hear about that on as a news story, right there. You don't hear people talking about like,
Not
well,
even
we're
on
gonna have to
independent
move.
media, unless
No,
it's your channel.
no, yeah, like you don't hear there's money, there's a fund, because people are gonna have to move away from the coast. They're already moving tribes away from the shoreline in Alaska. I mean, that's been going on for a few years, and again, that's another story that like doesn't get a lot of coverage, because they already understand that it's going on, it's happening right now, and people are being affected by it right now, um and it's just going to become something that it's going to become something of a bigger story, I think, in the next, you know I mean, I'm on the fringe right now, but I'm guessing in the next 5 years there's going to be a lot more talk about climate change and what is happening. I think the alarm bells will ring themselves, right? And because it's not, people aren't. What's the analogy about shouting fire in a crowded theater, right? Like,
Mm.
but it's not wrong if there actually is a fire going on, right? People are really like trying hard to ignore that there's a fire going on, and it's going to be affecting people um, adversely. And so, pretty soon it's going to be obvious that there are major problems. So, the sooner people can kind of understand this, and as you said, adapt. Um, and I think that's going on already too. There are people moving for various reasons. People moving, north, or people moving to areas where they feel like they're not going to face extreme weather. Um, if you live in a hot climate, if you live in the desert, uh, people in Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, there are people moving away because they understand um, that 120 degrees is going to start to be something that people experience all the time, and for a lot of people, that's just not just uncomfortable and miserable, but at some point it becomes a little bit threatening, to your life, right? Because if it's 120 degrees outside for a couple of days in a row and the AC goes out, you know, depending on your health, that's probably not a good place to be.
What I feel extremely sad about is the decline in biodiversity that we're gonna see increasing exponentially. Like there's gonna be so many species that people will only know about just from reading a textbook from like decades ago and seeing,
Right.
wow, look at how rich in biodiversity the Earth used to be, and
Right.
humans just ruined it.
Right.
And the next time that there will be that much biodiversity will be like millions of years from now, when um, all the surviving species adapt to the increase in our climate.
Yeah.
Um, but what do you see happening, like as temperatures keep increasing, as people keep moving north? Do you think that there's going to be more conflict, or do you think that people will come together and help each other out? What do you see happening?
The general consensus is that there'll be, more conflict, and that water will be something that becomes scarce enough that people start, fighting over it. Um, I I don't know though. It could go. I'm sure that there will be pockets of people that help each other, right? That see that, maybe the way forward is not um, to pit ourselves against each other for, compete for resources. But that's the optimist in me. Um, but I think that of course, that's really going to be the only way we're going to adapt and possibly, you know, make it through to a point where we can possibly avoid, some serious damage. Or uh I mean, we are officially in an extinction event, right?
Yeah,
So we're not, it's not coming, it's not something that we're waiting to enter. We're already in an extinction event. That's
yeah.
also something that nobody ever talks about. Like, we are in the sixth or
The
seventh
sixth
mass
mass
extinction, whichever.
extinction. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know how you reverse an extinction event, right? Like, I don't know how you escape that. Um, but I don't know. We're humans and we're clever, and or maybe some alien friends will help us. I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea what the future is going to be, and I don't have no. Um, I don't know if there's purpose in guessing on what it's going to look like. Not very fun. Unless we do, kind of realize what's happening, and make some efforts communally to do something about it. I don't know. We are adaptable. We are an adaptable species. We're a clever ape, and
Mhm.
so we can, we can think ourselves out of a lot of situations. I don't know if we can think ourselves out of this one, um, but we can move. We have the ability to move and to recreate our landscape, the landscape around us. Um, as always, hoping for the hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, I guess is the saying. Um, but I don't know. I think doing something about it meaningfully is going to entail people really understanding what the problem is first, and we might have a chance to evolve, right?
Mhm.
So maybe everything seems to be speeding up, right? Technology, um, communication.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if awareness is getting greater or not, but I think so. I think
Yeah, I
the
think it's largely thanks to how the internet accelerated the transfer of information. We have these online
Sure.
communities that are exchanging information with each other. I'm seeing more people that are becoming more aware that electoral politics is not the way forward.
Yeah.
Like it's not like things are just gonna keep getting more and more corporate over at with electoral politics,
Right.
and there's gonna be more co-option, people that are gonna present the illusion of change with these politicians with all these catchphrases and talking about things on Twitter rather than actually writing legislation. But people are going to catch on to it, just like people are catching on to it now.